released by the Bucks as he heads into a season that will likely be mostly, if not all, rehab for his Achilles injury. Jason Tatum going through the same thing and unsure if he will play next season either. Little interest between Damian Lillard and the Celtics.
During the beginning of NBA free agency, Damian Lillard's NBA journey took its most dramatic turn yet when the Milwaukee Bucks made the shocking decision to waive the 9-time All-Star and stretch the remainder of his $113 million contract over 5 years. This unprecedented move was done to create cap space for Miles Turner and left Damian Lillard as an unrestricted free agent for the first time in his career. The one twist was it also made him a free agent during the time of his career where his value was at its lowest. You see, Damian Lillard tore his Achilles tendon during the NBA playoffs, so he is going to be out for the entire 2025-26 season. He also turns 35 years old on July 15th, and now he faces the most critical decision of his career. Where is he going to continue his championship case after a 2-year stint in Milwaukee that produced 0 playoff series wins, despite teaming up with a former 2-time MVP in Giannis Antetokounmpo? That's where things get really interesting. But before we get to the content, make sure you drop like, subscribe, and turn on our notifications. Enter for a chance to win an NBA jersey. We're going to be giving away an NBA jersey every single week to a subscriber that has our notifications on, and we're going to be doing the same thing for an Instagram follower that has our notifications on. And now that we get all that out of the way, cue the intro. As a result of my brand new partnership with Fantasy Aces, we have been profiting like crazy via my new Discord server. I'm going to leave a link to it in the WAP link in the description down below. And if you haven't signed up for Prize Picks, make sure you use my promo code microphone to get a free $50 when you make a play of $5 or more. And thank you, Prize Picks, for today's sponsor. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? Damian Lillard's tenure with the Milwaukee Bucks will go down as one of the most expensive failed experiments in NBA history. And that's despite Dame playing fairly well. He averaged 24.9 points and 7.1 assists per game in his final season with the Bucks. But the partnership with Giannis never clicked as expected. The duo only had 3 total playoff games together across 2 seasons due to injuries, with their pick and roll efficiency ranking as merely average at 1.11 points per direct pick. More damning was the team's 28th ranked clutch time offensive rating with Lillard on the roster, which is a shocking statistic for a man that has been known for his clutch performances such as this.
Lillard, long range 3, and it's good at the buzzer!
This is a shocking statistic for a player that's nicknamed Dame Time. And behind the scenes, the situation was even crazier. Sources reveal that Lillard never wanted to be in Milwaukee and was miserable during his time in the East. And the chemistry issues extended beyond the court. Danny Green suggested that the lack of summer workouts between Damian Lillard and Giannis Antetokounmpo was a fundamental problem. And even more troubling was the way that the Bucks handled his departure. Lillard found out about his release the same way everybody else did, through social media, which led to Giannis expressing displeasure with the organization's handling of the situation. And the financial implications are staggering. Milwaukee will pay Lillard $22.5 million annually until the 2029 to 2030 season, despite Dame never playing another game for them. This makes this the largest wave and stretch in NBA history, which is essentially the Bucks admitting that their blockbuster 2023 trade that sent Drew Holiday, multiple first-round picks, and pick swaps to Portland was a catastrophic failure, and the decision to prioritize Miles Turner over keeping Damian Lillard speaks volumes about how far the relationship had actually deteriorated. But honestly, the Bucks really didn't have much of a choice. I've said multiple times throughout the past that the Bucks don't have much of a choice but to trade Giannis at this point. They have no assets until 2030, and there wasn't really a way that they could improve the team, except for this. And I have to give the Bucks credit where it's due. This was a very creative way to improve the team. On April April 27, 2025, Damian Lillard suffered a torn left Achilles tendon in Game 4 against, ironically, the Indiana Pacers. The injury occurred without contact when Dame was going for a rebound, and this is an injury that every aging athlete fears. At 34 years and 286 days old, Dame was 54 days older than the late Kobe Bryant when he suffered the same injury that effectively ended Kobe's prime. And I hate to admit this because I absolutely love Dame as a player and what he's represented throughout his entire career. Studies show that only 72 to 73% of NBA players return after an Achilles surgery, with those who do experiencing an average 24% decline in value over a replacement player after 2 seasons. The typical recovery timeline of 10 to 12 months means that Dame probably won't be able to return until the 2026 All-Star break at the earliest. And this is really concerning for a player that relies on quickness and agility. Guards historically struggle more than forwards or centers post Achilles tears, and Dame lacks the height advantage that helped Kevin Durant maintain elite performance after his 2019 injury, which is kind of interesting because Kevin Durant has been on record saying that he is now the Achilles guy.
Man, it was a grind, and of course, you know, JT and Dame, you know, hit me up. I feel like I'm the Achilles guy.
You are.
Yeah, like everybody hit me up when they had their Achilles and
the best.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of guys. I feel like a lot of guys have bounced back and became themselves again.
And even KD said he's still rehabbing his Achilles injury.
You see me every day. You see me. It was grumpy
Even when
day.
you were back.
Yeah.
The amount of work you have to do to
Still,
make sure it
yeah,
does
you
it
still
today,
have
right?
to
Like,
rehab when I'm playing. You know?
Yeah.
I'm still doing some of this stuff that I was doing in that rehab. So it's gonna be your game and your body is gonna for sure change.
But what makes Lillard's situation even more precarious is that the Achilles tear came just weeks after he returned from a deep vein thrombosis in his right calf that had sidelined him for 14 games. And most of us just seem to have forgotten that. Damian Lillard had an injury that typically ends NBA careers. A deep vein thrombosis ended Chris Bosh's career, and there have been instances of players being able to return from it, like Brandon Ingram and hopefully Victor Wembanyama. But the combination of age and multiple serious health issues and the devastating nature of Achilles injuries creates legitimate questions about whether Dame can ever return to all-star form. Which brings us to, what are the teams that could potentially sign Damian Lillard? Well, the Boston Celtics have emerged as legitimate contenders for Lillard's services, and multiple sources confirm that there's mutual interest between the two. Now, Damian Lillard has a close relationship with Jason Tatum during their 2020 Olympic gold medal run, and the Athletic has confirmed that Boston is among the many teams that would have interest in doing a deal sooner with Dame rather than later. Now, Boston's pitch is very unique because they already have a star player that is rehabbing from an Achilles tear in Jason Tatum. And it's not really a secret that the Boston Celtics aren't trying to contend for the 2025-26 season, rather they're trying to contend for the 2026-27 season. They currently retooled their roster and were busy shedding salary over the past offseason, trading Drew Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis just so they wouldn't have to pay $500 million in luxury tax for a team that had no shot at competing in the East. But Boston's proposal to Damian Lillard is a very sweet deal. The team has a great medical staff that is known for its conservative approach and has had success with aging veterans before, like Al Horford, and could provide an optimal situation for Dame as he's trying to recover. At the same time, Dame isn't going to go through his rehab alone. He has the face of the Boston Celtics right there with him in Jason Tatum. The Celtics ranked first in offensive rating and third in defensive rating in 2024 and thrived with elite three-point shooters. And Dame shot 37.6% from deep in the 2024-25 season. Boston's offer to Dame would be very simple. They would offer him the veteran minimum, which Dame probably wouldn't have a problem accepting because he's going to get paid $22.5 from Milwaukee until the 2029-2030 season. And then the next year they could sign him under the non-taxpayer mid-level exception in 2026-27. But what about the Houston Rockets? They have a young ascending core with significant cap flexibility. They have Alperen Şengün, Amin Thompson, just traded for Kevin Durant, and they were last year's second seed in the Western Conference. Dame could just be a locker room guy with the Houston Rockets and win a championship without even playing a single minute for them. At the same time, he's going to have Kevin Durant in his corner each and every day as he is recovering from his Achilles tear. He would make more money because Texas has no state income tax, which would save Damian Lillard $2 to $3 million annually compared to Massachusetts that would take 5% of his contract. But apart from that, there are multiple teams that are still interested in Dame. What about the Miami Heat? They just traded for Norman Powell and have always been trying to pursue Damian Lillard. Their core of Bam Adebayo, Tyler Hero, and Norman Powell desperately needs a proven playoff performer ever since they traded Jimmy Butler. Or maybe Damian Lillard wants to go home. The Golden State Warriors have always been interested in him. Dame could return to his Oakland roots while forming what could be the greatest shooting backcourt in league history alongside Steph Curry. Mark Spears confirmed that the Warriors have reached out to Dame, and Dame has even admitted that he grew up going to games at Oracle Arena. The fit is really cool if you think about it, because Steve Kerr's motion offense could accommodate both Steph Curry and Damian Lillard, with the Warriors having successfully integrated multiple ball handlers in the past. The team's championship window with a 37-year-old Steph Curry is rapidly closing, which creates urgency to maximize their remaining competitive years. Once Dame is healthy, he'd be teaming up with Draymond Green, Jimmy Butler, and Steph Curry to try to win one more championship, and that championship for the team that he grew up rooting for would be sweeter than anything else. At the same time, the Warriors are currently $17 million under the luxury tax, and he'd be rehabbing at the Golden State Warriors facility, and there's familiarity there because his former head coach Terry Stotts is currently an assistant for the Golden State Warriors. Of course, you can't make a video like this without mentioning the Los Angeles Lakers. In 2018, LeBron James tried to recruit Damian Lillard, famously saying, "Give me Damian Lillard and I'll show you how appreciated he'll be." There was also a meeting in 2021 at LeBron's home with Anthony Davis to discuss the possibilities of a big three. And the Lakers have taken chances on star players that have torn their Achilles before, like when they took a shot at DeMarcus Cousins in 2020. The Lakers are currently $4 million under the first apron, but if I'm being honest, the Los Angeles Lakers have way too many ball handlers on their roster to make this work. And this move would be more indicative of the fact that they're probably going to move on from LeBron James after this year. Because if this Lakers team has the same roster next year and has Austin Reeves, Luka Doncic, LeBron James, and Damian Lillard, that probably wouldn't make a lot of sense. Finally, we have to mention the Portland Trailblazers. Damian Lillard has said in the past that I do believe a day will come where I put on a Portland Trailblazers uniform on once again. And Chris B. Haynes specifically mentioned Portland as a landing spot, but at the same time, the fit with the Blazers doesn't make a lot of sense. They finished last season with a 36-46 record, and they missed the playoffs for the third straight year. Their core is currently composed of Scoot Henderson, Shaedon Sharpe, and Denny Avdia. All of these players need the ball in their hands in order to be successful, so this pick would be more about nostalgia than basketball logic, and I personally can't see it happening. But at the end of the day, we have to be very realistic about what Dame's future in the NBA looks like. Historical data paints a concerning picture for Dame's future impact. Among NBA players who suffered Achilles tears after the age of 30, there aren't many success stories. Yeah, of course, there's Kevin Durant, who represents the best case scenario, who's still maintained a lead performance due to his height advantage and his pure shooting ability. Kobe Bryant, on the other hand, offers the cautionary tale. He returned in 8 months but suffered additional injuries and retired 3 seasons later. Statistics indicate that Dame suggests at least a 15 to 20% decline in scoring efficiency with reduced minutes, where he'd probably be playing 25 to 30 minutes per game versus his previous 35 plus minutes per game. And the transition from primary to secondary playmaker seems inevitable at his age, and he probably has 2 to 3 years left in his career. Advanced metrics show returning players average 1.4 fewer points per 100 possessions with box plus minus and 2.4 fewer wins by win shares. And only 5 players in NBA history have averaged 15 plus points and 8 plus assists at age 34, and that's sans Achilles tear, except for one of the players that I'm about to mention. Steve Nash, Dominique Wilkins, who also tore his Achilles, LeBron James, Gary Payton, and the late Jerry West. With Chris Paul providing a model for a successful aging point guard transition, as he's averaged 8.8 points and 7.4 assists at his advanced age, but he never suffered an Achilles tear, and the combination of age, injury, and guard position creates the perfect storm of factors working against Damian Lillard's chances of being a meaningful contributor. But at the same exact time, you're no longer paying Damian Lillard supermax money. So if you add a player that is slightly less effective on a significantly cheaper contract, that could be the perfect recipe for success, so Damian Lillard could win a championship before he rides off into the sunset. The thing is, he needs to make the right decision here. If you personally ask me, I don't think you could go wrong with the Boston Celtics, Golden State Warriors, or the Houston Rockets. If you really want to win a championship while doing nothing, you go to Houston. If you want to make sure that your rehab goes smoothly, then you'd probably go to Boston. And if you want to have one last opportunity at winning a championship while being a huge contributor to that championship team, I'd say you go to the Golden State Warriors. At the end of the day, we're going to be keeping an eye on this situation because this is an unprecedented one. So let me know in the comment section down below, if you're Damian Lillard, what team would you choose? What would be your decision? I like to hear what you have to say. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.